Good evening. I'd like to start off by posing 3 questions. Would you assume that I'm up here or I'm bald because I am going through chemotherapy, because I'm a member of some extremist clan, or maybe you just think I'm rocking this do? Whatever your question might be, you might be asking yourself the same question I ask myself every time somebody out there asks me one of those questions. Does it even matter? I'm going to tell you my story, but not because I feel I need to be heard, but for the millions out there like me who need to be freed. As humans and social creatures, we have a desire to belong. And as a child, I felt like I didn't belong on the outside. On the inside, all I wanted to do was feel like everybody else, carefree and invincible. At 18 months old, I was diagnosed with alopecia, and I went through phases of having 20% coverage to 70% coverage. It was thin and fragile, fell out all the time, puberty was hell, and at the age of 4, my mom asked me if I wanted a wig, and I said, hell no. There are 3 forms of alopecia, most common forms: alopecia areata, patchy baldness; alopecia totalis, total loss on the head; and alopecia universalis, which includes the head, arms, legs, genitals, face. The most common form you're all familiar with is the androgenic form, which is male pattern baldness. Normal, right? But not for small children, teenagers, and women. It affects people most commonly through the ages of 15 to 30. It has no cure. There are multiple causes. They are environmental stress, emotional stress, adrenal failure, thyroid issues, iron deficiencies. The list goes on and on. As a child, I was a test patient for many, many therapies, including minoxidil, and I can vividly remember to this day having 200 steroid injections in my head. I can also remember sleeping most nights in a shower cap because my head was covered in disgusting creams. Barely any of these therapies worked, and I couldn't stand going to the next specialist, but what I do remember is my mom standing by me to help me try and find a sense of normalcy. What is normal? I fought in the mirror hours upon end, trying to make my hair perfect and cover up all the spots. I went through severe anxiety and depression, missed out on family celebrations and events. People told my mother that she should take me to see a psychiatrist, and she didn't, and I'm thankful she did not. I fought within myself with this crazy paradox of trying to find perfection through non-perfection. It was an insane war, and my mom stood by me the entire time. Relationships were really, really hard for me. I often felt most uncomfortable next to the people that should have made me feel safe. I always felt like they were staring at my bald spots and just looking right through me. I've been performing all my life, and ironically enough, I feel most comfortable in front of crowds like you, hundreds, tens, thousands strong. It's the small crowds that used to make me feel terrified. I could feel somebody staring at me, behind me, from across the room, hundreds of feet away. And it would just eat at me. And all I wanted to do was turn around and yell, "Why don't you just take an effing picture?" It was very, very stressful. No child, no human should have to go through that ridiculous stress from social stigma. It stifles life, it stifles happiness. Alopecia affects about 2% of the world's population, which includes about 5 million Americans. In 1997, I took 3 of my very best friends. One had scissors, one had clippers, and one had razors, and we did this in the dorm. It was midnight, took me into the men's bathroom, and we had at it, took it all off, and that night I freed myself. I walked tall and proud. Thank you. And because of that, I now have people coming to me for support and guidance, asking questions. How do I get through this? When I was a child, I never knew anybody else, never saw anybody else that looked like me. And there's support groups today. And what's nice is that every talk that I have, somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that either has it or has been affected by it, and it's becoming more matter of fact. It just simply is what it is. And that's exactly what I tell my son. He asks me at a very young age, and still continues to ask me because he wants to know more, "Mommy, why don't you have hair?" And the realist in me just says, "Mommy's body doesn't like hair." And that's what he tells his friends when they ask him. And they're okay with that. That simple, real answer is okay. And I'm hoping that through this chain of events and that trickle-down effect, that we can all spread a few seeds of change and erase this ridiculous sense and stress of social stigma that irks our planet. Thank you.